Welcome Wilson Middle School to yet another YouTube video. Today we'll be focusing on studying for the Mathematics OAA, which I hope all of you know by now is taking place this Thursday. Just by tuning in, you show us that you're dedicated to getting a good score on the test, so we're proud of you for that. We hope that you take this very seriously and that it helps you for the test. Today is actually a special day. There's 365 days each year that are great for doing math, and this actually happens to be one of them, so you're lucky. Helping make this video, we had Mr. Mardrum, Ms. Bocus, Mrs. Fooch, Mr. Plummer, Ms. Sherrick, Mr. Marshall, Mr. T, and of course, Chuck Norris. There is a few rules I want to go over before we get started. The first of those rules being, please take this seriously. This isn't just to get extra credit for your class or to just jot a bunch of work down. We want you to benefit from this, and what we would like you to do is pause the video when you're asked to pause so that you may work them out on your own in pencil. Then after we show you how to work them out, then you can go back in pen and fix your mistakes, so then we know where you went wrong. Alright, that'll be the best way to help you out, because the whole thing is that this helps you out. Good luck, and here we go. Okay, now some of these I won't show the multiple response choices, but for this one I will, because it really wouldn't make sense if I don't. So I'll read the question real quick, I'll tell you to pause, and then I'll have you choose what you think is the correct answer. Then when we replay the video, I'll show you how to do it. It says, which statement is also always true about the sum of a negative integer and a positive integer? Pick from the choices below. Go ahead and pause your video now, please. Okay, now the important part about this problem is that you notice that it says a statement that is always true. So what we want to do is try to disprove some of these. If we look at the first one, it says the sum is 0. So what I did is I looked for something where the sum was not 0 when I added a negative and a positive integer. So I got a positive 3 and negative 1. That is a positive 2, which is not 0. So the sum is not always 0. We'll cross that one off. Now I have a negative 3 and a positive 1. It says the sum is always positive. Well, negative 3 plus positive 1 is a negative 2. So we can cross off B. Now I look at C, the sum is negative. Okay, I got the same one we had in the first one. Well, we already know that's a positive 2. So once again, we can cross this one off. Now, the sum can be positive, negative, or 0. We already know it can be positive from our first example. We know it can be negative from our second example. We also know if you add opposites, so if we add a positive 1 and a negative 1, we can get 0. So our correct answer here is D. Okay, on this one, I'm not going to give you the choices. I'm going to have you work this one out as if it were a short answer response. Now, when you see a problem like this that says simplify, and then you do not see an equal sign, you're not finding what x is. That's a common mistake I hear. You're not finding what x actually is here. You can't do that when there's no equal sign. All you're doing is you are simplifying, in other words, shortening this equation. Alright, so go ahead and take a stab at this. Pause your screen, please. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're combining like terms, okay? We're looking for terms that match. What I usually like to do is look at the first term. Now, this has a regular x, which means there's no exponent. There's no exponent here. The exponent is just a 1. Okay, there's just one x here. So we're looking for other things that just have a regular x with no other exponents attached. What we see here is that this one matches up. The negative x matches up. I always have to look at the signs in front of each of my terms. So this one was a positive. And I also have a plus 5x. So when we combine these things, we get 3x plus 3x, that's 6x, minus x, which we can say is, if it's just a regular x, it's a 1x. Okay, so 6x minus x is 5x, then plus another 5x, That's 10x. 5x plus 5x is 10x. Okay? And then there's nothing else to match up with my regular old 5. He doesn't have an x attached to him, so he's just a regular number. So since I can't match anything up with him, I just tag him onto the end. And we get 10x plus 5, which in our answer choices would be answer B. Okay, so for this one they have a picture version of an equation. It's a model. So I want you to write the equation that you think this picture models. Go ahead and pause your video. So for these type of problems, you can pretty much always assume that what's on the side of the equal sign by itself, so these over here, is usually your regular numbers. So we can represent this, as I wrote in there, as 9 positives. That's just 9, so we'll go ahead and put n equals 9, because 9's on the right side of the equal sign. Now we can see there's 2 more of these over on the left side of the equal sign. So since we're going to have 2 extras, we know we can add 2 on this side. Now, we don't know what those triangles are, so the triangles in this model are going to represent our variables. Since there's 2 of them, we're going to say that's 2x. So the equation modeled by this model right here would be 2x plus 2 equals 9. Alright, here's a picture and a little word problem. It says Lance is 5 feet tall. His shadow is 8 feet long, which it has in the picture there. At the same time of day, a tree's shadow is 32 feet long. What is the height of the tree? I'll give you a minute to figure that out. Go ahead and pause. Alright, I know since you guys are all good math students, you immediately saw this and thought you were doing a proportion. Alright, so what I like to do is when I do a proportion, I know there's always going to be a variable, which is the thing I'm trying to find. In this case, I'm trying to find the height of the tree. We'll make our tree line here green, since our tree is green, probably. Alright, now it's kind of a matching game from there. You look at the tree and you say, in this triangle, what matches on the smaller triangle with my tree, which we'll call X, because that's what we're trying to find. Okay? Well, in the smaller triangle, the side that matches up is 5. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the other sides we know, because we need 2 ratios for a proportion. Now, since I used the big, we'll call it B for big triangle in the first example on top, I'm going to use the big triangle on top on the second one. So I'll use my 32 feet, and that means my L for little triangle is going to be on the bottom, again, as it was in the first ratio. So the side that matches up with 32 is 8. When I cross multiply and divide this thing, 5 times 32, we do our 32 times 5, which is 160, and then we divide by 8. When we divide by 8, we get 20 feet. Okay, I hope this one's an easy one for you. It says an angle is shown on the protractor. Estimate the measure of the angle to the nearest degree. Go ahead and try this one. Okay, I hope most of you could tell this is at least an acute angle, which we know means less than 90 degrees. If you know it's an acute angle, it's obviously going to be less than 90. But if we look here, our angle seems to be going right about here. Okay, so it's somewhere in between 20 and 30, so we can go ahead and mark off 37 degrees. We know it's not that one. Now, this halfway point right here would be 25, because that's directly in between 20 and 30. So it's less than 25, okay, which means we can go ahead and mark off B and C. When we mark off B and C, since we know it's less than 25, that leaves us with our answer, which I hope we all got, and it's 23 degrees. Alright, we got a nice little word problem here. It says the Burton Company produces cylindrical barrels with a radius of 2 feet. If the height of a cylindrical barrel is reduced from 12 feet to 4 feet, what will happen to the volume of the barrel? Go ahead and take a second to think about this. Okay, now I want you guys to get in the habit of writing out your steps just how I've shown here. Always write your formula, then fill in your formula, and then put your final answer, of course, with a label, which we know is feet cubed since we're dealing with volume. Squared is area, cubed is volume. Alright, now our first cylinder here had a height of 12, radius of 2. If we plug that in our formula, we get 150.72. Our second cylinder has the same radius, but we took our height, and what we did when we went from 12 to 4 is we took our height down by a divisor of 3, which means our height is now a third of what it was before. Okay, a 4 is just a third of what it was when it was 12. So what happened is our volume also is a third of what it was. If we take 50.24 and multiply it by 3, we get 150.72. So when it says what will happen to the volume of the barrel, we would simply write out the volume of the barrel will be a third of what it was when the height is reduced from 12 to 4. Alright, it says which graph represents y equals 2x plus 1. The graphs were a little blurry there, so I put the red dots in the middle for your origin. So the red dot is your origin in each of those examples. Go ahead and pause it and take a second. Okay, the easy way to do this is to first look at your y-intercept here. Our y-intercept is positive 1, which tells us that our line should cross the y-axis at positive 1. Okay, if we look at choice A, that is not true. It crosses right here at negative 2, so we're going to go ahead and cross that one off. If we look at choice B, so far so good. That one crosses at positive 1. Also, choice C crosses at positive 1. Choice D does not cross at positive 1. So we've already eliminated half of our choices. If we look now, our slope has to be 2. Remember, we find slope by rise over run. If we rise from this point to this point, we rise 1, and we run 1, 2, a positive 2. Our slope is 1/2 here. We do not want a slope of 1/2. If we check this one from this point to this point, we see that we rise 2, run 1, 2 over 1 does give us a slope of 2. So our correct choice here is answer C. It says, what is the range of the data in the box and whisker plot? Go ahead and pause your screen, take a second to figure it out. Alright, statistics still should be pretty fresh in your brain. We just did that recently. Take a look here. To find the range of a set of data, you always take the difference of your highest number and your lowest number. In a box and whisker plot, the whiskers show us our upper extreme, in this case is 95, and our lower extreme, which in this case is 25. When we take 95 minus 25, we get 70. So our answer here is 70. Go ahead and pause this, take a second to read it, and then you may begin. Okay, on this one we're doing theoretical probability because we're not actually going to spin this thing 120 times. We're just saying what should happen if we spin it 120 times. If we spin it once, the chance we're saying is 1/5 because blue is only 1 out of the 5 choices. Now that's saying that every 5 times we spin, we should get 1 blue. So what we want to see is how many times we should get a blue out of 120 times. When we cross multiply and divide this thing out, we get D. Go ahead and pause this and take a second to read. Okay, so on this one there's 24 possibilities since there's 4 sections on the spinner and 6 sections on the cube. 4 times 6 is 24. Out of those 24, you can see in my work that there is 13 possibilities where the sum greater